We're getting ready for the 4th of July around here, around everywhere. So this week, Scott and I thought we'd talk about independence. What is it and how do we get it? We all want some of it. So let's get into it this week here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast.
We've got some turbulence up ahead.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Scott and I as we talk investing, finance, and retirement. Of course, Scott is, he's the guy, right? It's the guy you want to talk to. He is the airline advisor. He's got on his awesome freaking 4th of July shirt, Folds of Honor, which is a great program. By the way.
It's incredible.
So, yeah, they're fantastic. How you doing, my friend? You doing all right?
Yeah, really good. How about you?
Doing good. Looking forward to the 4th of July coming up next week. This is our 4th of July episode. You're going to be sweet and give me the week off. I appreciate it so I can get some sun and
enjoy
hang out
it
with my family.
Enjoy it.
I appreciate that. But let's talk about independence. Like, what does it mean to us, right? Obviously there's lots of ways we could take this, but we'll keep it within the financial confines of our chat. What kind of things are we looking for as we're getting closer to, getting older, retirement, whatever the case might be? Like, and what does that independence look like? For me, I guess let's just start with financial independence, right? I mean, where should we start?
So there's like, to me, I when I think about independence, in retirement specifically, there's a handful of things that I think about, and so
Okay.
I'll bullet them out and then we'll break them down one by one. Okay.
All right. First one.
One would be the retiring on time, like retiring when I want to retire.
Okay.
The second one would be what you were just hitting there, the financial independence. All right. So like from a money perspective, what kind of things are going on there? The third one would be like freedom of any fear of what the government is doing. Right. So we'll break that down a little bit, but I want folks to feel like, hey, I'm independent and not worried about government policy. So we'll talk about that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the last two here would really be around lifestyle. So we have good freedom around what our lifestyle looks like in retirement. And then a little bit kind of piggybacking on our last episode too, a little bit of, independence around that, and we're free from the burden of what we have from an estate planning standpoint. Okay. So,
Gotcha.
So we'll kind of break those down here a little bit, but the first one here, retiring on time. So we know, at least for our pilot folks out there, 65, if you're with one of the major carriers,
cut off, right?
Yep. You got to be done by 65. And
Okay.
so, first off, not retiring at 65, like from a mandatory retirement date, and then having to go back to work somewhere else because you have to. That does happen. But then also being able to retire earlier if that's what you're wanting to do. So if you have a goal that you're like, hey, I know I can, my military pension kicks in at this time or whatever the case is. And, I want to be done at 59 and a half, or I want to be done at 55, or I want to be done at 60, whatever your goal is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I feel like that's really the first portion of independence and retirement is I can retire on time.
Yeah. Whatever that time is, right? I mean,
That's right.
whatever your deadline is, if you plan on working until you drop, great. But when you drop, be ready to go,
Yes. Well, and to me, that's like, it's interesting. A lot of folks outside of the pilot community that we work with, we talk about when do you want work to be optional? And so, that
Right.
work optional date is maybe one that you want to have, but we know that there's going to be a no later date for the pilots out there, 65 as of now, unless Congress, changes that and the FAA.
I meant to ask you, now that's retiring from the big airline, but if they want to do private flights or things of that nature, can you still fly? The FAA still lets you fly after 65?
Yep.
Okay.
So after 65, they can, I got some private guys that are in their late 60s
Okay.
still flying. So,
Yeah.
there's certain medical things that they have to go through, but they can't.
Sure. Yeah. No different than, I guess, getting your driver's license, right? Pass the eye test and so on and so forth and various different things. Yeah.
Yep.
Different tests for that. Okay, cool.
So that's one portion of it. And I do think that's kind of where planning really kicks in, especially like the younger you are, the better opportunity you have of hitting that number. If you're 52 and you want to retire by 55 and
Right.
you're off track, you have limited time to close the gap. So the younger you are, I think the more important it is to really understand what your aspirations are. Now, those goals and aspirations can change. Maybe by the time hey, I always said I wanted to retire at 55, but now that I'm 55 and I have awesome seniority and I'm flying what I want to fly and I got the routes that I have, and I'm working less than I've ever worked and making more than I've ever made, then maybe I do want to ride this out till 65. That's completely fine. But that's, that the choice is yours. And that's what we're talking about from an independent standpoint.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But if we kind of segue into that, I mean, what strategically enables that, like an early retirement, is obviously the financial side.
Financial independence. Yeah, exactly.
And so to me, when I think of financial independence, the one thing that many people will bring up is like, hey, I don't have any debt. I don't owe anybody anything. I do think that is a really, really good best practice to have in retirement. It's not like a hard rule, so to speak, that I would necessarily throw out there. It still is a little bit of like, well, it depends on your plan. Yeah. But, I do think I've never met one person in retirement who's debt free who was like, man, I wish I would have borrowed money a little bit longer so I had more capital. I mean, I've never met somebody one time that was happy to have a mortgage. And
it's like the mortgage. Yeah, I was going to say, what do they call it? Like the 6-inch mortgage conversation or something where, you feel like you stand 6 inches taller once the mortgage is gone, because you get that weight off your back or whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was something we could have aspired to, but at the same time, sometimes people will feel like, oh, until I get rid of all this debt, I can't focus on other stuff. And it's like, be careful how you compartmentalize, because you don't want to just sacrifice, savings or things of that nature because you're trying to get all this debt taken care of. You need a strategy around it all.
Yep. And so, the other couple things that I kind of look at from a finance perspective, one would be from a passive income standpoint. So, think maybe rental income or, pension, Social Security, disability, whatever you have. I have enough passive income coming in that my bills, not my discretionary spending, but my bills are covered. So whether that's servicing debt, utilities, property taxes, insurance, whatever the case is, basic groceries, I want all your bills covered by passive income. If your bills are covered by passive income, there's just a certain level of financial peace that it's like, hey, if things went to hell in a handbasket, I could cut back my travel and golf and still not lose my house because I'm dipping out of my investments at a loss, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way around Social Security, right? Like once you get to that activating that portion, it's like, okay, well, this is going to cover our, oh crap scenario. Everything gets paid for. I can eat, lights on, all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, and then the last part I like to look at on the finance side is the investments. I would like to see, from a financial independence standpoint, is that your investments are making more than you made at the end of your career. Does that make sense? And so that's a good metric out there that we can say, all right, if my investments, in a average year of growth have earned more than I made at the end, then I'm, in a very good position that I have a large enough nest egg, especially if I have a younger retirement, 55, 60, let's say, that through retirement, I'm going to be, able to handle whatever comes at me and have something to pass on to my kids. So
gotcha.
I think that's a good aspirational goal that most people are able to meet.
I like that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so like one example for that would be if I was making $200,000 a year when I retire, I got a $2 million nest egg, and a 10% S&P 500 year has paid me that $200,000. So that's like that's just one little example of, how I would kind of run that out. So, and you get there, you know what I mean? Early in your career, you're like, man, there's no way. But near the end of your career, you meet many, many people that are like,
it's hard to see.
Yeah, the investments are making more than I made. That's a good year.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own Financial Flight Control Toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see when you're further out, for sure. Well, so that walks us into, freedom from government, right? So, which is, kind of apropos, talking 4th of July, right?
Yep.
We kind of, pushed back, obviously, and started our thing here in the U.S. And I mentioned Social Security a minute ago, right? So a lot of people do it. Look, it's a huge piece of people's retirement plans. It could be a lot of money, but you also want to kind of set yourself up in a position where, if something did change or fall, so this conversation where 75% payout, right? By 2033, you're maybe only going to be 75% of the money, rolling out. What does that do to you, right? Are you reliant on that, or do you have freedom from the government, or whatever the tax rules might change to be?
Yeah. I mean, to me, government policy is going to impact you in retirement.
No way around it.
If you're retired for 20 or 30 years, government policy is going to impact you.
Right.
So we're not saying I want you free from any government impacts.
It's how much it impacts.
I want you free from worrying about it. That's what,
okay. All right.
I don't want you to worry about it. Meaning,
yeah,
if tax rates go up, it's not going to drastically impact me, either because we have a large enough nest egg that I can absorb the increase, or we've done enough advanced tax planning that we've mitigated a lot of our tax bill in retirement. We have enough Roth money and after-tax money out there that if tax rates go up significantly, I know it's only impacting a small portion of my retirement funds.
Yeah.
If I got 100% of my funds in a tax-deferred 401k, which is what most people are set up to do right now, and then I retire and tax rates go up by 20%, I mean, I'm going to feel that. It's going to hurt, And so if I double that with, them increasing the taxation of Social Security benefits, well, that's even more that it's going to hurt me. And I got to take out more of my pre-tax assets to get my same lifestyle covered. And that's going to make the burden even worse. Some of that will happen in retirement, right? We're very likely to see tax rates go up sometime in most of our retirement. We're going to see inflation. We're going to have seasons of increased inflation. Government spending is going to impact a lot of that. However, if we've done a good job of diversifying not only the assets we own, meaning I don't own all of one fund or all of one stock, but also the tax classification of these assets, I'm going to be much more likely to be able to pull from different colors of money, so to speak, and mitigate some of the risk of that tax policy changing in the future. And so there's items like that we can absolutely control now and impact now. And the earlier we make some of those decisions, the larger impact they have in retirement. And
For sure, right? I mean, it's minimizing that impact and minimizing the stress levels that it brings to you. So that's another independence. I know we want to kind of keep moving on these, Scott, so we'll go to the next one here. So what did you mean by lifestyle, right? So
I mean, obviously, from a lifestyle perspective, most people in retirement, I've never met one to date who, when they retire, they want to have a significant decrease in their lifestyle. Like, I used to live like this, but now I want to sell my vacation home and I want to, go out to eat less and travel less. If anything, there's a little bit of increase for some period of time.
For a while,
that first little bit of that first decade of retirement, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so from a lifestyle perspective, when we're talking about independence, we are saying we want to have, the freedom. This is the phrase that I've heard repeatedly for years, Mark. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it, within reason. That's what it's kind of funny. Like, that's the phrase that people say. And that within reason, I think, really speaks to basically what I do now. I want to be able to continue to do.
Yeah. I love the within reason, because it's like, okay, look, I know I want to go do this or I want to go do that, but let's be honest, I probably can't, I can't go to Italy.
$1 billion yacht.
Yeah, I can't go to Italy, 7 times a year, or whatever, and take the entire, family, 20 people with me or something like that, or buy a yacht. Yeah, big yacht. So that's good that people are being realistic.
But it's basically like, hey, going out to eat, doing my hobbies, traveling with my spouse, seeing my grandkids, fixing the roof, buying a new car every few years. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it within reason. And that's where those other items, I mean, this little independence recipe, they all kind of work together, right? The less I'm worrying about government stuff, the more I'm likely to be set up to really enjoy the lifestyle that I currently have.
And that's because you've taken care of your own financial independence back from our earlier point, right?
Yes.
So yeah, they all play together. And that kind of really ties us into the last one, which is that last pillar, which is, the estate conversation. We talked a little bit about that last week, but the one I hear often, Scott, from a lot of advisors and even from, older folks that I talk to myself is, I don't want to be a burden on my family. Right.
Yes.
So you could almost call it financial independence from being a burden or from, that kind of thing.
I mean, and some of this is financial. And some of this estate burden that I'm talking to here, Mark, some of it's financial. But more of it, I would say, is more on the planning side, meaning like when I age and if I, like most people statistically do, start to see some cognitive decline, what are we going to do? Like, who's going to be my advocate? Who's stepping into that? Or am I going to just let myself mentally decline and make all sorts of terrible decisions that, throw away $1 million+ which I have seen people do that.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I didn't have a good plan. What's the plan for long-term care? How are we going to pay for it? Do I need insurance? Most people, that we're working with, they can find a way to self-fund it. But if we want to get a policy in place to insure against it, how do we do that? And then on the estate plan, how do we make sure that we're not leaving the kids a mess and really into retirement, where statistically we're most likely to be passing away the older we get, obviously. But how do we make sure that we've got the good plan in place? All the documents are updated, especially in that last little bit of when you're working. That's a great time when you're doing 401k rollovers and opening up your new accounts and double checking all the new account classifications, getting all those beneficiaries updated, making sure the estate plan's updated. That's a great time to take that time and make sure that you're not going to, leave your adult children a mess, that you're taking advantage of certain taxable items that are great for blessing your grandkids if you want to pay for college and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and that kind of legacy planning, I think, is really important, where you say it's not only, we talked in detail last time about not leaving the estate plan in a mess, but more so in that legacy space of like, how am I actually, paying taxes on the money now to make sure I pass on tax-free money to the kids, because all my kids are successful and they're in higher brackets too. Yeah. I mean, that's like some, multi-generational thinking. It's not super hard. It takes 5 minutes to talk through it and update some plans, but you got to do that 5 minutes. Right. And so I think there's just a handful of things there that when you get some of those things in place, there's also like this, you talked about the mortgage burden. There's also like this burden of like, man, I'm really doing a good job here to take care of my family. And I know that my ducks are in a row. And again, you look at a lot of the clientele we work with. I mean, they, professionally, between our pilots, our executives, a lot of the corporate support team, I mean, these are folks that they got to have their ducks in a row with what they do for work every single day. And so, if you were managing your plan, like at work, like you manage your plan at home, would you still keep your job? And some people, the answer is no.
That's why I make those jokes about the government all the time, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what administration either. You can't run your home like the federal government runs the government, like it has for decades, right? We'd be out, you'd be out on the streets in a cardboard box.
I mean, it's like, again, using the pilot example, you got to do these 3 things to maintain your license and your current ratings. You're going to do them to maintain your employment and your career track, et cetera. You got to do these 3 things to make sure when you pass, you don't like leave your kids a mess.
A hot mess. Yeah.
You're like, well, I'll do those later.
I know.
I'm not sure what later is. It's not a date, but
yet people will say that of the top 3 things often that they come into a financial professional and talk to, they're like, I don't want to run out of money.
Yep.
I want to be as efficient as I want to keep my tax bill low, and I don't want to be a burden on my family.
Yeah.
Yet they will put off the conversation that causes them to be a burden to their family.
Yep. Yeah. But in my experience, as I got my start working with high net worth retirees. And then, as time has gone on, we're in this airline space now, working with, folks that are getting ready to retire, but then also a lot of younger folks. I mean, especially the pilot hiring has changed, and we're working with many people in their 20s now too. And so but the principles here, are the same. And so that's, I'm happy to have that conversation and that background of sharing, hey, here's so many lessons learned from people that are way further along in the journey from you. And we can kind of take those lessons that I've been able to learn from them and apply it to your personal situation. Hey, I'm telling you, if you want to feel independent in retirement, it's going to be because you hit your retirement timing. You have good financial independence. You're not worried about what the government policies are doing. You're able to have the lifestyle that you want to have. And then you know that you got a good legacy plan in place, that you've done the right things to take care of your aging self and make sure you're not going to be a burden on the kids at the end of your life and then after your life. And so if you get those things in place, you're going to be feeling really, really good about the work that you're doing, that you're working towards true independence, not some arbitrary retirement date, not some arbitrary dollar amount, but true independence in retirement. And you're going to enjoy that.
Man, I love it. Love it. Great. That's a great point. Great way to wrap that up. So if you need help with that, folks, reach out to Scott, get yourself onto his calendar, or talk to some financial advisor. If it's not him, talk to a proper, financial professional. Obviously, it's not designed to turn every viewer of the show into a client, but hey, you could be as well. So reach out to him, get yourself on the calendar, have a conversation. We'll have the links in the show descriptions below. You can go to retireairlines.com. So don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And we'll see you next time here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast with Scott Osborn. Thanks, my friend, for breaking it down. Have yourself a great 4th of July week as well.
You too. Cheers.
We'll see you next time here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast with Scott Osborn.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.